discussing today about intellectual property right or copyright, and as I have already told you that there are not many students, and that has actually lessened my tempo, but again I'd like to ask you about intellectual property right. What do you mean by that? What do you understand? Any idea?
People's own ideas,
People's
words,
activities which derive from their intellectual capacity. So it is basically the protection of the intellectual activity, right, of the people. And it has also come into attention recently because of you see, multivariate nature of this aspect. When we say multivariate nature of intellectual property rights, you see that these rights are controversial to a certain extent, because there are also gamut of rights falling in this intellectual property rights, and those rights are like copyright, which you know, patent act is also there, and trademark. Okay, so we all of us are aware of these very rights, right? So when you are talking about this property rights, these rights are always in, you see, rights are in tangible form, and it will also give recognition to the work which are in tangible form in a medium through which it is being expressed. So when the intellectual activities is being expressed through a medium, and that too in a tangible form, then only your right can be recognized. Okay, so that is the condition, the tangibility of the expression of culture, of the art. So that is one criteria to get the recognition of IPR. At the same time, I would also like to tell you that when you are talking about the cultural and societal aspect, which are quite, you say, intricately related to intellectual property right, and cultural and societal aspect actually represent the expression of culture of one community, and especially the indigenous community. Okay, this is the expression of culture of indigenous community, which is basically defined as a folklore, not related to this past inscription, but also their functional tradition. Okay, and which are also protected, which are supposed to be protected by IPR, right? So it is a very broad regime. IPR is a regime which will try to protect the traditional knowledge, which will try to protect the, you see, the intellectual activity and creativity, innovation, and very significant invention and discoveries, which is aligned to any kind of, you see, any kind of product, any kind of existing art, any existing, you see, that biological structures or existing chemical structures, any kind of invention will be called intellectual property right, or will fall under this intellectual property right regime. Okay, so we will not go detail about this international recognitions of IPR. That I'll discuss next, because you were only two, so I'll make it like, you know, minimalistic way. So when we are talking about copyright, all of you know, right, it will give an economic incentive to the owner of this. So if we look at this intellectual property right, it can be divided into Copyright Act, that is one section of intellectual property right. So copyright, if you look at the history of copyright in India, it was started right during this colonial period in 1847. So it also fell in line with this colonial British law, okay, in order to protect the outcome or this printed material or outcome of printing technology or printed material. Okay, so with the advent of printing technology, the importance of copyright law has also been realized. Okay, So it can be dated back even to 1555, the importance of copyright law, which will actually give you legal recognition, which will give the legal recognition to the author, as well as not only giving the legal recognition, give the economic right and moral right. Okay, economic incentive. When you say economic right, so Copyright Act, let me tell you, Copyright Act, if you look at the history of Copyright Act here in India,
I came early, I was searching for the class at...
So exams are going on. So see,
I went everywhere, like literally searching.
so see, I will be taking class in this room only. Okay, this room I will also, I have already told the C40 students to go to the other room, because there are 2 rooms supposed to be, that is what, occupied by C40 students. This is also meant for C40, but I will take class in this room because there are not many numbers. So there are not many students. You are 10, no? 10 or 12? 12. Okay, they are 13, also you are 12. So it's better also to communicate in a close setup. So we have started intellectual property right, and you were also aware of this intellectual property right. It's also a very important and controversial, at the same time it is a controversial aspect. We have started with this copyright. Okay, so regarding the history, briefly I have told you the history of copyright in India. It was started in 1847. 1847, the first Copyright Act has been enacted in India during this colonial period. As a part, yeah, not many. Yeah.
You send the message to everyone, okay, and ask them to meet me during the day today. The articles, they would want to have the name, placement of network 18 months to it. Those who are interested, they should meet me during the day. You're sweating like this?
Because of this weather, no? It's so sunny. Mood maybe kahe hoye sir. Moi je alak pasate jai kahi ko side so okay, regarding the history of copyright, right? It was enacted in 1847 in line with English law in order to protect the printing materials during this colonial era. So I will not go that extensive regarding the history of copyright, because again I am going to discuss about these laws and act in the next class also. There we will go in illustrative way. So we see that Copyright Act was basically the recent one was enacted in the contemporary Copyright Act was enacted in 1957, and it came into effect in 1958, and there are also many amendments made over the years. These amendments was to keep the Copyright Act in line with WTC. What is WTC? That is WIPO Copyright Act. WTC, World Intellectual Property Organization Copyright Act. You know about WIPO. WIPO is World Intellectual Property Organization, WIPO. So WIPO Copyright Act is WTC. So in line with that WTC, inconsistent with the provision of WTC, in order to make the provision of Indian Copyright Act inconsistent with the provision of this WTC, some amendments have been made. Okay, sorry? WTC. No, WCT. WCT. Okay, WCT and WIPO. WIPO, all of you know about WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organization, right? So this is an organization which will safeguard the intellectual property right. And WTC is a WIPO, World Intellectual Property Right Copyright Treaty. World Intellectual Property Right Copyright or World Intellectual Property Organization Copyright Treaty. Okay? Organization Copyright Treaty. So So in order to maintain that consistency with the provision, certain amendments have been made in the Copyright Act, which was the Contemporary Copyright Act, which was enacted in 1957 and which came into effect in 1958. Certain provision has been amended in 1983, then 84, okay, 84, then 94 and 2003. Okay. You see, in 1994, two important provision has been incorporated. Section 37 and 38 has been incorporated in the Copyright Act. As I have already told you that copyright will give us economic incentive. Copyright, the basic purpose of copyright is to give economic incentive to the author and give legal recognition to the intellectual activity, legal recognition to this work of authorship. Right. So, 1994 amendment is very, very significant because it has introduced two sections, that is 37 and 38. Okay. These two sections have been incorporated, and these two sections are important for the performer and for the purpose of broadcasting of your work. Okay. So let me tell you that when you are talking about the copyright, you can also refer to the work of Gandhiji, right? Gandhi's book, My Experiment with Truth. So after his death, the work has been given to a trust, it is Navjivan Trust. Okay. So Navjivan Trust, and you also see that copyright has also a life scale. So it has a life scale of, you see, the author's life scale plus 60 years in India. You know about this, no? So after the death of Gandhiji, his work was given to Navjivan Trust to deal with, and after 60 years, by 60 years, it will be when 2008. Yeah. So his work was made open in public domain. Okay, so that public interest clause is associated with the work of intellectual property right. So that is another important issue, public interest, and when work is made in this public domain, okay, made open in this public domain, it is also brought in the public domain to reproduce, recast, or even communicate, distribute, even distort, modification, or anything. Okay, and for 60 years plus life scale of this author, plus whole lifespan of this author will be considered for copyright. So that life scale of the Gandhiji, that lifespan of Gandhiji, so it ended in 1948 plus 60 years. That ended in 2008. So after 2008, Navjivan Trust, although that trust got some of the legitimacy or from even this public scholar, some of the scholars, to extend the copyright of Gandhi's work, because he is a man whose ideas and philosophy have inspired many Indians, and same goes to the work of Nelson Mandela. So the scholars ask for extension of copyright. Okay, but you see, Navjivan Trust is driven by that, you see, Gandhi's philosophy and principle, and not to retain or extend that copyright, but make that work available. Okay, now work is made available in the public domain. Okay, now you see copyright. When you are talking about copyright, as I have told you, copyright has got certain component. Like it will give you economic incentive. So it is related to economic right. It will give you moral incentive. Secondly, it is related to moral right. Okay, economic right is also divided into further categories. Like you will get economic incentive. You can also make an adaptation for a different work, or you can make a derivative work from that, book or any film. You can make a derivative work, make something new, completely new. Okay, and you can also sell it and give it on rent. Rental right is also there. Okay, and performing right based on whatever is written. You can also perform, you can deliver a lecture. Okay, so these are the rights which will come under economic right. So economic right is a component of copyright. Accordingly, moral right is also a component of copyright. Moral right means exclusive claim of this author. Exclusive claim of the author over the intellectual activity, as well as moral integrity of this work, that author can object to any kind of distortion, any kind of modifications or distribution of his work. So that is a moral right which is also guaranteed the Copyright Act. Okay, so these two are the component of Copyright Act, and the 1994 amendments. 1994 amendments have incorporated two sections into copyright, that is 37 and 38. Okay, by incorporating these two sections, 37 and 39, two more rights have been incorporated into the realm of, you see, this copyright. There are two components already. So 37 has incorporated that broadcasting provision. So broadcasting in the sense, you say, giving broadcasting right to one media house or one organization to avail the facility like sound recording, video recording, or even to sell that, or also make it public. Okay, so that right is given. This is an exchange between organizations or exchange between individual and organization also. So that right is, broadcasting right is also introduced with the help of this amendment and section 37. And 38 has given performance right. Performance right, when we are talking about the performer right, like who will be the performer, actor will be performer. Then you see this juggler, then even dancer, musician. So, and a person who is delivering lecture will be a performer, right? And his right will also be recognized by this section 38 of the Copyright Act. Now we see under section 37. Yeah.
So 38 is performer rights. So what is exactly like? I didn't understand.
Okay, so this copyright is that whatever I am delivering,
Yes.
okay, I have exclusive claim over whatever I am delivering on the basis of my written manuscript or whatever. I have an exclusive claim because I am delivering something which is exclusive.
Yes.
Okay, so performance right is different. Musician, even a musician, a singer. Singer he is performing. So whatever he is performing, he can also claim over it. He has a moral claim. Okay, even if he has sung a song prepared by someone or composed by someone, he has also equal claim over that particular song.
Because
So
the person saying
because by virtue of this ability, or even by virtue of his performance, he can claim, have a moral claim over that, over his performance. Okay, so that right has been included. And broadcasting, in the sense, when you are talking about broadcasting, you see broadcasting, suppose Star TV, and Star TV has taken the broadcasting right from BCCI. Okay, so there is also that competition between Star and Sony, who will get the broadcasting right from BCCI to broadcast the cricket match, to telecast this cricket match. Okay, so BCCI, Star TV can do anything, can also reproduce this cricket match, can do sound recording, video recording, can alter, modify anything, can also use it for commercial purpose, can also sell it for rent. Okay, so Star TV is entitled to use that broadcasting right. No other organization apart from Star is entitled to use it. Okay, so this two section is also included in Copyright Act. Okay, so earlier copyright was basically meant for literary work. Now you also see, with the advent of technology, we have that computer, right? Computer generated programs are there, user friendly content are there. Now there is a typical term which you get to find. This is called program. computer program. Computer program is also recognized as literary work. Computer program and databases are also recognized as literary work. Earlier, what we understand by literary work, only these printed materials, which are literary work, right? Anything of intellectual activity related to art, related to even, So this two provision has been incorporated. So hence 1994 amendment has been very, very significant. So you understood this? So it's easy. Okay. So then we also have this another. You also know this patent law. Patent. Patent is also a part of intellectual property right. Okay. So as I have told you, there are cumulative rights in intellectual property rights. Intellectual property rights, let me tell you, this is basically related to property. So property is not limited to land. So property is also there in the form of intangible. So intangible property. So when we are talking about copyright, I am also talking about intangible property, which has got a mention in Article 300A in the Indian Constitution. Article 300A in the Article 300A in the Indian Constitution made a mention about intangibility of this Copyright Act. Virginia is searching it.
No, ma'am, I'm noting things down.
Huh? Oh yes, I'm using mobile phones. It's so advanced. Okay, it's good. So you haven't bought a pen and paper?
Ma'am, I have, but this is like so much convenient. It keeps my pen and paper. It was wet yesterday, so this day I was like thinking we on phone.
Okay. So and it takes even 5 minutes to type the message for me. I'm digital immigrants. I'm not digital native person, so you see, unlike you. So it takes a lot of time to type the messages. So this is one thing. Okay. And then where are this?
Intangible property rights.
This one, 300A in the Indian Constitution have made a mention about the intangible nature of copyright. So copyright is also a property, right? It is also a property, right to property. So we have a right to property, and it is also an extension of right to freedom of speech and expression. So when we are talking about freedom of speech and expression and 2019, so copyright is also an extension of right to freedom of speech and expression in the form of intellectual expression. Okay, so that is also one thing, and we see it is at the same time it has encouraged author to produce more of intellectual activity which actually society requires for cultural progress of the society, and that's how you can relate it to cultural aspect. So why we need this Copyright Act? This is something very legal, and legal recognition is required for the cultural progress of the society, because it will encourage the author, encourage the creator to create more, to innovate something new or some newer aspect through which a society will progress. So for the very cultural progress of the society, copyright is essential. Copyright Act is also essential. Okay, otherwise it will demoralize, it will amount to demoralize this on the authors and the creators if you won't recognize their activity. So in a way it will give a recognition to their activity. So next we will come to Patent Act. So when you come to Patent Act, let me tell you that here there is a controversy regarding this is called controversy regarding the right of indigenous people. Okay, so what is patent? Patent is an exclusive right over a significant human invention. Patent refers to exclusive right of individual over a significant invention, significant discoveries. So when you are talking about patent, you cannot even apply for patent if the work is already in the public domain. Okay, so you cannot even apply for patent. And if the work is already existed, but there is nothing new to that, so you need to make some of the significant invention and discoveries aligned to the work, and which should not be necessary to the already existing skill set. Okay, already existing skill set or knowledge. So you have to be very distinct about what new you have been incorporated, so that could be like examined in a concrete way. So something tangible is required for patent, for applying patent. So here, yeah.
Ma'am, I have read an article regarding a debate. The thing is, multinational cosmetic industry, they are using products which are already used by people inside the indigenous people.
That's what I'm telling you. So it is very controversial.
Yes.
Yeah, it is controversial. I'll come to that. You see that now when we are talking about patent, this is an exclusive right on any invention. Various MNC now claiming that they have manufactured a product without even giving legal recognition to the knowledge of this indigenous community. And you see, it is a kind of bargaining, or it is a kind of contractual agreement between the indigenous communities and MNC. And indigenous community, because of their weak bargaining power, cannot even, you see, bargain with that large corporate or enterprises, and can claim the right over the knowledge and innovations. Okay, and the thing is that the kind of innovations we are talking about in terms of Patent Act, so innovation has to be a singular way. Singular way means an individual can claim. And in case of indigenous communities, you see, they have a different kind of worldview, right? The worldview is collective. So they reduce everything to community ownership, community interest. Okay, so that has also lessened their, you see, scope claiming for right over any kind of knowledge or which has been existed. So there are certain characteristics also which define the this intellectual property rights of indigenous communities. So IPR, intellectual property right of IPR community, or traditional knowledge of IPR community. So when you are talking about traditional knowledge, so see, there are in Assam, in case of Assam, you have already visited Majuli, right? So you have already seen this, that Mukha culture is also there, which is very traditional, right? So that is something very indigenous to the community. So, but that right over it is also collective. Okay, so which you see, look at culture, and even you see some of the stories, even folk tales are also there. So that is an oral tradition. So that knowledge has transmitted from generation to generation, generation over generation, and knowledge is not fixed in a particular time. So knowledge is of timeless kind. So there is no fixed period of time that could actually define that knowledge, that it has occurred at that period of time. Okay, which is necessary for applying the patent. Okay, for because patent will actually examine everything in tangible form. Okay, so in a concrete way. There are also various medicinal herbs, like we have the Tengesitenga, Manimuni. Okay, yes, you know about this. You see, turmeric is there, neem is there. So it is. It has already created issues related neem and turmeric as issues related IPR. But you see, in Assam also we have different kind of herbs which actually demand IPR, intellectual property right protections, demand protection. Okay, but that protection is not availed by these very herbs, and availed by the community for their traditional knowledge on this medicinal component, or by traditional community this very rights are not even given to the indigenous community for their traditional knowledge over the medicine. Okay, because of their communal nature of understanding or collective nature of understanding because of you see this oral tradition, because this is not documented anywhere. So whatever knowledge is there, that is in an oral form, it is not even documented. And because of non-tangible nature, and because of even unconscious discovery. When you say unconscious discovery, so some knowledge has been existed and new knowledge is also incorporated unconsciously by any community member, name of which is not even known. So in an unknown, unconscious way, new knowledge have been incorporated in that traditional existing knowledges, and that have also made, you see, that claim for property right by the indigenous communities very difficult, and they do have that weak bargaining capacity. They are not very literate, and also lack of training, lack of skill, because of communal ownership, because of also communal decision making. Okay, made it's very difficult to have a moral claim over their right, and that's how you get to see that multinational corporations, this corporate enterprises, they have upper hand. They're having an upper hand in getting that claim over the rights. You can even see there are certain, this is, I forgot, there are 3 Qs, you know, 3 Qs. One is, I think, quackery, another is quit, and another is quent. So, I'll see, this is the 3 Qs. This is the 3 Qs that actually define the characteristics of indigenous knowledge. 3 Qs. I forgot a bit. One is, I think, this is what Q-U-A-I-N, went, and quackery, and also this is quit.
How is it pronounced? Spelling?
Quackery, Q-U-A-C-K-A-R-Y.
C-K-A-R-Y.
Quit. So, quits.
So
Quits.
what's the first one?
Quit. Q-U-A-I-N-T. So, because that actually defines the nature, so I will discuss with you about this, because I also go through properly about this very terminology, but I found somewhere it is related to, that's what, intangible nature, and related to their, you see, they often, indigenous communities quit in terms of their capacity to claim. So first, they do not have capacity to claim because of lack of education, lack of awareness. So that multinational company have taken their rights, companies have taken their rights, they usually quit. So this is known as quit. And quackery, in the sense, again, that is what unconscious, as I told you. And quint is also, I'll get back to you about this, okay? So I found somewhere, so how it can be defined. 3 Qs are there to define that tag of war between this MNC, as you have done, and you see, indigenous community, okay? So when you are talking about the indigenous community, there are also, you see, appropriation comes. Recently, I have gone through a video in Facebook where Rajdeep Bailu, the journalist, refused to wear a gamusa which is made by Paulum. Okay, so that is an issue, that becomes an issue actually, because Paulum has created many more products like gamusa. It is it has already attained that GI. GI is geographical. Sorry? Yeah, not according to states. According to region, right? Yeah. So GI is very important. That is also another very important issue comes along with IPR. GI, geographical indication. Okay. So when you are talking about geographical indication, that is was very specific to region. So this is not something very recent. GI is not something very recent. So the aspect that GI has been, I think it was discussed after the First World War in 1919 in France. uh, in view of the specificity of cheese and wine, which is very specific to French, French culture. Okay, so in that way, they said that the soil condition, that climate, that environment and atmosphere in which these very products are being produced and developed have got a GI, that is geographical, that is identification or geographical indication. So this is what GI, when we are talking about the GI in India, was developed in 2003, I guess. GI, there are various developments over time. In you see, when we are talking about GI in Assam, Muga silk has got the GI. It has got a word and a logo, Muga silk of Assam. Again, Assam tea has got a GI, Assam Orthodox tea. You have got a logo. If your logo is also there, and Assam Orthodox, it is like Assam Orthodox.
Is there tasteful litchi?
A tasteful litchi, right. It has got a word as well as logo. Logo is also there. And then that Karbi ginger, Karbi ginger has got a GI. And also you have Joha rice, then Bukka rice, got a GI. Okay, so so it has make it very specific to that region. So basically it is you see this origin, it indicates the origin of that product and good. Okay, so this is also important to have a trademark. Okay, trademark, that is a mark over the good for sale in a competitive market. So quite important. So you see that when you are talking about this indigenous, intellectual property right. So the GI is also that there are various laws which I will not discuss today. There is that. Apart from this Patent Copyright Act, there are also different laws, gamut of laws. So that I'll discuss in the next class. So you do attend the next class. And also, you see that when we are talking about appropriation, you might have heard about this kava. You know kava? Kava. This is kava has also claimed. Kava is there. Then kava painting. Kava. These are some of the examples of appropriation. So kava, then fishing method has been appropriated. When we are talking about the reproduction of traditional design for commercial merchandise, and also for even you see any postcard, okay, and appropriation of fishing method. Okay, so tapa design is one. Okay, so it has made a lot of controversy, and kava is also known for, you see, for its capacity to heal various diseases like for Alzheimer, or even you see, it is also known for that tranquilizing effect. It has that coolant effect. It's a plant basically. So and you have. See, it is also known for hair loss. L'Oreal has already claimed patent for kava, and that too in different region. For kava, K-A-V-A, kava for hair loss and stimulating hair growth. So you see this kava is there. You see fishing methods are there. This is also appropriate. So you see these are some of the examples of appropriation. When you see Rajyoti Bayo refused to wear gamsa, which is made by Parloom, has also got a factor involved, and that is what appropriation of indigenous property and indigenous culture. So it is something very indigenous. It is made with this hand, like made with lot of hardship by those artisans, weavers, okay, and you see with this incorporations of that missing Palu, so that their art has also been taken away, and it can also appropriate that traditional design, so that in a mass scale. So in a way, it has also reduced, employment, and you see any kind of infringement that is actually regarded as an infringement of copyright. When you are talking about appropriation, that is regarded as an infringement of copyright. And whenever your right has been infringed, you will not only lose the revenue, you will also lose that employment, job prospect. Okay, and sculpting method is also appropriated most of the time. Okay, KAPOU design, you see KAPOU design.
Most of the tribal communities in Assam have their own motives on which, like for Metla Sada or any other form of clothing, they usually have their own motives, but like they don't have copyright over those.
They don't have copyright.
But the same design can be copied by other brands as well.
Right.
So that will then still be considered appropriation even if they don't have
That
copyright.
will be right. So see, they do not have this, indigenous communities do not hold any IP or intellectual property right? They do not have copyright.
But it will still be considered a cultural appropriation.
It will be considered appropriation.
But will the brand be charged, like on legal grounds can they be charged for appropriation even if the indigenous
If
community
they
does
give
not
there
have?
is a condition, informed consent. If they give this, if community give the consent to the corporation, to the company to make, then it will not be regarded as a cultural appropriations. But without getting a consent from the community, if you are doing only for commercial purpose, for mass sale, okay, for profit, then it will be regarded as a appropriation of culture.
I read this somewhere like way back in the fashion industry itself.
Right.
So there was this person, this designer, who copied not exactly copied would be the right word, who used a certain form of art that was like very tribal in nature. Okay, so the tribe, like, they filed a case on him, but this person has never been to the tribe, nor does he know, but the design was like sort of similar. So what would be the stance of the people here? Like, what would be the result here?
So see, infringement of copyright can also lead to imprisonment for 6 years, and which for a term of, not 6 years, sorry, for a term of 6 months, which can be extended to 3 years. And also an amount of fine which is 50,000, I guess, which can be also extended to 3
But that
lakhs.
person
So
hasn't
it is
been to the tribe,
infringement.
nor does he know their culture.
Sorry?
The person has not been. Probably he must have been inspired through other external influences. But he clearly hasn't been to the tribe. Okay,
So that will be regarded as an appropriation or violation of that IPR. Violation because that design, traditional, any design is very unique to that community.
Yes.
Okay, unique to that community unless and until that community give a consent, informed consent. Okay, informed, they also know that they are giving consent to some company, some individual to even to sell that design, to also reproduce that design, to make profit out of it. Okay, so there has to have a legal document between two parties. Then only you can, you can be free from these very charges of appropriation. Okay, so that is one thing. And you also see regarding this neem and turmeric, what has happened. Neem is something which is naturally occurring, right? It is considered as naturally occurring, and US companies like W.R. Grace and Company, they demanded patent for neem in 1992, and one German anthropologist, I guess, invented and being alerted about these wonders of neem in 1959. Okay, so during that time he was quite alert about these wonders of neem, that it can also, it can be used as a pesticides, it can also use as a healing many illness. Okay, so then after in 1992, US company has claimed patent over the neem, and that was resisted by numerous NGOs and Indian farmers, saying that they have been using neem from time immemorial in their fields, okay, in order to, like, in order to even eliminate this pest now. So use as a pesticide. They have been using as a pesticide. There is nothing new which has been invented by that company, US-based W.R. Grayson company. There is nothing new. So something which is naturally occurring. So here you see that when you claim a patent, you have something significant in terms of discoveries and invention. So whatever pesticides like neem oil can be extracted, but that is naturally occurring. You have only extracted the oil with the help of this technology. So you cannot claim a patent or you see your exclusive right over the discoveries or invention. You cannot even claim any exclusive right over that discovery or invention, because this is not regarded as an invention, because it has been already used. And neem has also got the GI because it is something which is specific to India. In Indian subcontinent it is there. Again, this turmeric, that is also raised an issue, right? That is because it is used in flavor, it's a flavor, good flavor for cook. So in that way, it has also, 2 companies has demanded patent for turmeric. Okay, so but again on certain grounds. So you see, the patent was being revoked after resistance by NGOs. So when you are talking about this claim by this community, indigenous communities, as I have already told you, so they are not aware and they do not have educations, they do not have resources also. You see, most of the time when you are talking about this Muga and these artisans and weavers in Assam, we also have, you see, this bell and brass metal in Assam, right? So it is very unique, and so far GI is also not been received. Even any like property right has also not been received for bell and brass. This bell item is very unique and specific to Horthebari. You know the Horthebari, it is in Borbeta district, right? And you see, in every household in Horthebari, you will get to hear that tang tung hang, all the sounds of making bell items. So this is very unique, but it hasn't got that GI, okay, geographical. Then also you talk about this brass item, which is also unique to Hajo community. Hajo in Bonaikusi, I guess. In Bonaikusi area, there are people who usually make that brass item. But at the same time, in this competitive market, what is happening? Some other product from other state have already taken over their market, and they do not have that GI. So they have these people who are into this craft making at a losing end. Okay, so that is also one thing. And most of the time, middlemen are the one who actually got all the share. So here also in Assam, you might have got this kind of examples in Majuli. So middleman, the role of middleman is very prominent because they take all the profit. I have a very beautiful photo story. So I'll show you. That was actually based on Delhi. I made when I was a student. So I'll show you that photo story. Beautiful story. So and it is expressed. You see, literally it is expressed. So in persuaded by that story. So here actually see middleman also won't get that profit, and work usually happen for, you see. It is seasonal work. Okay, for 6 months they usually work, and remaining period of this year, remaining months they kept ideal. Okay, and raw materials are also not available. And in case of Muga also, you see Muga, Eri, Pat. So Eri and Pat hasn't got GI. Okay, only Muga has got GI in Assam. At the same time, because of government negligence also, you can see that this product haven't attained that IPR right yet and haven't got the legal recognitions, and that's why it could not compete with other product of similar kind in even Indian market. Okay, so you see Aditi, you are from Madhya Pradesh. you see the bell material, it's very unique. People used to could not distinguish between bell and brass. Okay.
I went to cultural studies department museum.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, found no bell is very unique.
It's unique, and also there was a bag of I don't know what to call it, bamboo or something. So
Bamboo and can is also very unique. So we have more than 150 pieces of bamboo.
But everywhere nowadays we use this bag which I showed you guys. That is probably could have taken from there only, but nobody knows that it was where it was found and the design mostly. And I think I was able to connect more because here it's bamboo, in my street it's more of woodwork.
Wood.
Craving.
Right, wood craving is there.
Yeah, so that is there. So here it's fishing, there it's hunting. So
Okay.
the lady was asking me because in Dubai there's a good museum, Manav Sangrahalaya. So it has all the tribal art and culture and everything is there. So when she was asking me about the differences, I was able to recognize the difference well, and I was able to connect better. And when Sarah asked me about the similarities, I was able to tell them about the mud because they here also there are two types of bamboo houses and the mud houses. In my city there are mud houses which are often mixed with like cow dung. So that is also done there in the museum. So certain things are there which are like because later on I came up I ended up studying design methods. So design methods there is a particular process which we call to design things based on nature. So we take everything from nature and then design a product out of it. And when we see the communities, they have already did the process, like they have already done everything, any of process I did. And now we're learning the process from some Western person who invented the process, and now we're learning again. But I think I can see that this is already been done here in India, in many states and tribes and culture. So that is something different.
That's what it has been there. But MNC have made little innovations and they claim right over it. Okay. So, okay then. So we'll conclude here today.